This is fascinating. Remember at the Mitt Romney Republican National Convention speak last week where it was like very high key lighting at that event, and you saw him kind of walking around and coming in when he was going to do his speech, and he was shaking hands, and the camera would kind of cut back and forth, back and forth. Interestingly enough, at one of the points where the pool camera, which all the national TV networks picked up, at one point those cameras moved away from Romney and they went to two women who were cheering. And then they went back to Romney. Now, interestingly enough, and I don't know if this was deliberate, many people think it was. I don't know if this was just by chance. I'm not really sure. It's not clear who was controlling those cameras. Very well may have been a master pool feed from somebody inside the RNC, an RNC staff member who was controlling that pool. It moved away from Romney at a key moment where he shook hands with billionaire, Republican donor, anti-union activist, you know who he is, David Koch. Big handshake, big embrace. Now, fortunately, the Democracy Now! Cameras actually got this handshake, Lewis. So we actually have side-by-side video. This is brilliant stuff. This is from Democracy Now!, and you'll hear Amy Goodman narrating what goes on here, and she'll explain that at the exact moment that Mitt Romney goes and shakes hands with David Koch and embraces, the cameras just don't show that. But side by side, Amy will show us. And if you're watching, you can easily find this video. It'll be on our YouTube channel. It's on the Democracy Now! Channel. Let's take a look and listen at what's going on here.
I want to go back to that moment when Mitt Romney made his entrance on Thursday night. He walked down the aisle of the Republican convention, and as he was passing the New York delegation, he shook the hand of the state Republican Party chair, Ed Cox, and then he shook hands with David Koch, actually put his hand on his shoulder, pointed at him, and shook his hand. While Democracy Now! Was there on the floor, we captured the handshake on video. The pool feed that went out that the network's broadcast cut away just before the handshake, showing two enthusiastic young women supporters, and then an overhead shot of the convention center. Then the shot comes back to Romney further down the aisle, shaking hands as he ascended the stage. And we show that split screen for our radio listeners. You can go to democracynow.org. I think it's...
Okay. What do you think, guys? A coincidence that it's just perfectly timed right when he gets to David Koch? You have a shot of two young women cheering and then an overhead shot, and then it goes back when he's moved down the line. Well, what do you think? I mean, it's too perfect, isn't it?
Is it possible that it's coincidence? Yes. Highly unlikely.
You think it's unlikely?
Highly unlikely.
Natan, what do you think?
I'm just unclear. Who this was one network who cut away, or
No,
this is like the feed that went to all networks?
All the networks were running a master pool feed. They all ran the same feed.
Right. And who was deciding?
That's what I'm saying. We don't know whether that was RNC. You know, for example, C-SPAN runs a feed which is controlled within the House of Representatives, and the House can cut the audio, as we've seen happens. Right. And C-SPAN just has to kind of deal with it. You would think it stands to reason that at the RNC, the pool feed is controlled internally by the RNC, and networks use that feed.
I just find the whole conspiracy a little bit bizarre, just because most people don't actually know who David Koch is.
They don't know who David Koch is, but you have to...
It's still a good idea not to have video footage of that interaction.
Because the Obama campaign knows who David Koch is, and there is more and more Koch recognition in this country, and they can then be used in ads, et cetera, et cetera. Why not avoid having that visual altogether? I mean, it's perfectly reasonable. Let me put it a different way. Let's say that President Obama had not distanced himself. Not that this is... I want to be very clear. This is not comparable, okay? But let's say after Obama distanced himself from Jeremiah Wright, you know that if Jeremiah Wright is front and center at the convention, and there's video in 2008, and there's video of Obama shaking hands and embracing him after he has said that it's this guy he's not really in touch with anymore, so on and so forth, you know that would make it into Republican ads. It doesn't matter if the average voter doesn't recognize him by face. It's still something you want to avoid.
Yeah. Why have it out there? Why have it on record at all? Still a little foolish to think that there wouldn't be other cameras around at this convention that would pick that up.
But they were very closely controlling what cameras were inside the convention center. This appears to be some kind of cell phone video or something of the like. The bottom line, it's a microcosm of the entire Republican campaign.
David, everyone in the world has a little camera on their phone now.
Yes, that's a very good point.
Yeah.
It's a microcosm of the bamboozling of the American people. It really is. You show the excited young women as the face of what's going on, the excitement about Romney and these excited young women, instead of the billionaire anti-union business guys who are really backing the Romney campaign. That side by side is representative of this entire Republican campaign.
You got it.